Welcome to the first episode of our Crazy About Jesus podcast. Today we have both Pastor Lisa and Kempy Womble sharing with us a little bit about love and relationships. If you have a question you'd like to have them answer for our next recording, or if you'd like to comment on what we talk about today, you can find the podcast post on our Instagram with the handle @TheSeedChurch. Okay, so today we're going to start out with a little bit of an icebreaker question to keep us all on our toes here. The first one I'm going to ask Pastor Kempy. So, Pastor Kempy, can you share the worst mistake you have ever made in the history of your Valentine's Days?
Probably comparing something with my mother on Valentine's. That didn't go over too good, which I thought it would because it's my mother, but it didn't go over too with her, my wife.
You probably should have brought that up because I don't remember that. So now you might be in trouble.
That's what's good about being married for a long time.
We forget.
Memory.
The next one is for you, Pastor
Okay.
Lisa. Can you share the best decision he has ever made on Valentine's Day?
I can share the best decision he ever made, period. And that was asking me to marry him.
Oh,
His whole life has been wonderful since then.
Good answer. Okay, so Valentine's Day can sometimes have its tough moments for people who are waiting on their future spouse. Do you have any encouragement to offer for them during the waiting period?
I think the hardest part is almost anything that you say to somebody can seem cliche, but the reality of it is that this is a time that you can depend on God and learn Him and get to know God in a way that you never would get to know Him before. And I think we have to kind of be like Paul and be content where we are and learn to capture those moments and then let God do what He needs to do after that. What about you?
Well, I think you should just enjoy your time off and save your money on Valentine's. No, just kidding. But when you get kind of in a hurry, when it comes to something, your future spouse or your Valentine's, you got to be careful not to settle. Don't ever settle for something because God don't expect you to settle for anything. He has something, planned just for you. And sometimes when you get in a rush, wanting something more, your flesh or whatever you desire and something more, you kind of tend to settle. And you know what I'm talking about?
I do, and I think that's because their thing is nobody physically there.
Yeah.
And I do understand that there is nobody physically there, but when you do truly learn to rely on God, He can fill every void that you have, whether it's physical or not. He can fill that.
That's awesome. Okay, so the next one is, do you have any advice for someone who has maybe just started dating someone or is thinking about pursuing a specific person?
Well, for the woman, she needs to make sure she lets the man pursue her. Because men want to, they want to pursue the woman. They want to think of things that would please her. And I think as the woman, she needs to let the man do that. Let her be pursued and not so much.
Don't be desperate.
Yes.
To keep the relationship going. And I think the important thing is, it is true that if you become friends first, it seems to last a lot longer. Develop that friendship. Get to know that person. Become friends first. Don't rush into a serious relationship with them. And then once you become friends and you realize it's going to go a little bit deeper than that, then you don't have to prolong the waiting period so long. I think that's the main important thing. Just focus on that. And the other key is if they're not pursuing God before they meet you, they're not going to pursue God later. They may pretend they're going to pursue God because they want to keep you interested, but if they don't have a love for God at first, don't even waste your time with them because it's not going to change them.
So no ministry dating?
No ministry dating. No ministry dating. Nope.
Okay, and so I know we just recently got back from our annual marriage retreat and conference, and Pastor Lisa, you preached a great message to wrap up that weekend on Sunday morning. I think people will really be interested on maybe a few key points that really stuck out to both of you guys for your marriage and things that you're still learning even after all of the years you've been married.
I think that's really cool. One of the things I saw the next day was that marriage isn't a promise to always be in love, but it's a promise to always love. And when you've been married for 36 years, that kind of really hits home because you realize every day that I wake up, I don't always love him, but I'm in love with him. And there's a difference. And because of that, we don't always answer appropriately. We don't always act appropriately. The little things that make us different are the things that irritate us and aggravate us. But I think from Sunday's message that we can learn the important facts of that love isn't based on performance. And it's not based on whether he meets my needs or doesn't meet my needs. And so my happiness can't be dependent on that. It's got to be dependent on God. And so I've got to ask myself, do I still honor him through my actions? And that's the hardest part.
Yep.
So what did you take away from Sunday?
Well, just confirmation that our marriages are 100% guaranteed to be successful when we surrender, to each other and to God. And then we become one, because it talked a lot on oneness. And what more powerful team than when you come together with God and we operate together under God's authority as one, so division can't come in there. So, I mean, life's got, you're going to run across problems with your children. If you're on separate pages, it's just going to cause more conflict. But when we're one, we're seeking God together on the problem, whether it's your finances or family problems, whatever it is. I think God designed a husband and wife to be one because it's a powerful team.
Yeah. You think about the 7 things I talked about, like acceptance, forgiveness, letting go of anger, loving with compassion like God did, grace for the other person, and the fact that we need each other. I think the 2 things that stuck out me the most is I've got to let go of my anger, my right to be angry. And that's the hardest thing. Is like, okay, I can justify my actions, especially as women. We can replay the incident enough that we'll justify our anger. But there's really no justification in God for us to be angry. So I've got to let go of my right to be angry and be mad at him. And the other part is grace.
So hard.
It's so hard. Because we feel justified. Daggone it. We are justified in
When
this.
you're mad a lot of times, I remind you that you're not justified in being angry.
That will be fine.
Which would just
That's
make you
what-
more
it'll make me more angry. But the other part
Doesn't
is,
work out.
what does grace look like? What's coming out of my mouth? Because usually when we're angry, we're not saying very words filled with grace
No.
back to that other person.
We
We're
always
saying
want the
hurtful
last
stuff.
word.
Yes.
You know. it's-
We got to give up our right to be the last one to be
Yeah.
spoken, or the first one to apologize. I've tried to do
Yeah.
that lately. Be the first one to say, "I'm really sorry."
And she's done it a lot lately.
I have done it a lot lately because I'm trying to live what I preach.
Kind of like one of the speakers from I can't remember which one, but they were talking about taking ownership
Yeah.
over, I can't remember what he said, the ownership over your spouse's well-being. I thought that was another cool way to say that.
And another one that I heard a guy say is that I'm preparing them to meet Jesus for all eternity. And I loved him well enough that I have freed him to walk in everything that God wants him to walk in. So when he meets God, that he can say, "Well done, thy good and faithful servant," or have I hindered him from being able to do that?
Wow. No pressure.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Hashtag no pressure.
It'll really make you think, am I hindering him or helping him?
Yeah. That's awesome. Anything else that you guys want to say to anybody on this subject at all?
Never give up on your marriage. Never. Never give up on it. Seek counsel, seek help, but never give up on it. And you can't go by what the other person is doing, whether you're going to pursue the marriage or not. Because one of my favorite scriptures is when he said, marriage is God's art, and don't ever desecrate his art. And divorce is desecrating his art. And nobody wins. Nobody wins in divorce. Nobody. Not even the children. The children suffer the most.
Some of the men sometimes think when they have to get help or counsel, it's a sign of weakness. That they're not in control. But we all need help. We all need advice. So we just have to submit ourselves to make our relationships better.
It's worth it.
Yep.
Is there like a time that you would say divorce is the only option? Like what would you say?
I think there are some incidents where abuse is concerned. Anytime there's abuse or anything like that, or endangerment to the children or to somebody else, yes, those are grounds for divorce. But that's not usually 90% of the people that we see. It's not that. It's I've never felt loved, or I've never gotten love, or I don't love them anymore. That's not a good enough excuse.
Yeah.
If you're married, God can change that. He can change your love for that person and restore all of that back.
And do you guys have like maybe a resource that you would recommend for, like, if you had to pick one resource, what would you pick for married couples?
If you're not going to go for counseling, I would. I think the Story of Marriage by John and Lisa Bevere is probably the best I've seen. Otherwise, I would really think that you should go for counseling. And there's some amazing counselors here in town that we could refer you to, and I think that's really, really important.
Okay, awesome. So I think that's it for today. So that was amazing. Thank you, Pastor Lisa and Kempy, for sharing with us. And to all of you, thanks so much for listening and hanging out with us. Make sure to visit our Instagram post or visit thecchurch.com/podcast to submit a question, and we'll talk about it next week. Thanks.